Good day, viewers, and welcome to it, Celebrating Greatness. This is a segment where we host individuals who are making a difference in their communities. And today, I'm hosting none other than Mr. Mompoloki Mogobe. Mr. Mogobe, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
I really appreciate that. And we have been having this conversation a lot about, sharing content. And before that, I just want to introduce you. You are a serial entrepreneur. You are a speaker, and you do a lot of work around property as well. I would like you to introduce yourself to Botswana. Maybe they don't know what you do.
Yeah.
They don't know, who you are. Who is Mompoloki Mogobe?
Yeah, the full name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe.
Yes.
I'm from Muduganele Ward in Kanye.
Okay.
I always say that I'm from two cattle posts. One is Makatanyani. This is a cattle post where I grew up, the formative years of my life, where my grandfather, who was then taking care of me in my mother's absence when my mother had gone to school, used to take me there. The first 10 years of my life, I might add that I was born outside wedlock.
Okay.
So what would happen is that my mother would leave me with my grandparents, and they would take me to the cattle post. That is Makatanyane. Then when my parents reconciled and got married, then I started moving to another cattle post called Mahumali. It doesn't mean that I was spending all the time in this cattle post, but the most learnings, in my view, I got from those cattle posts and the lifestyle there. So in Mahumali, which is 80 kilometers beyond Jwane, in a place near Samani, that's where I spent the formative years. But over time, I developed a lot of interest in architecture. When I was at school, for instance, I liked technical drawing. And but because chemistry was one of the requirements when I went to school, I then said I can't do architecture. Then I settled for law. So I would say that the first half of my business career has been as a lawyer, full-time practicing under Lerumo Mogobe legal practitioners. So I see myself, as you said, as a serial entrepreneur who is involved in several businesses. My objective is to infuse, to energize, and to empower others. So as we employ more people, I think when I last checked, we had about 170 people employed under our group of companies. We make sure that these people are empowered, they are exposed to interesting subject matters and areas of operation, from real estate to law, as I mentioned, to restaurants. We happen to be at Black now, as well as to hospitality and sanitation and other areas which we'll get to as the interview proceeds.
All right. I can hear your background. You were raised in that ordinary cultural Motswana, upbringing. And what I want to understand is, yes, from there, the issue of going to school and then finishing school and then starting into law, that would someone would say, yes, that's a path normally. Go to school, work, and then after working, I want to understand the transition that you had to make from just doing law to say, there's more that I can do. And the transition, I want to understand it in knowledge acquisition from yourself as a person to say, now this is where I want to focus on. I don't know what inspired that, whether it's mentorship, knowledge, and all that. What was the building for that transition?
Yeah, there's nothing mysterious about that. What happened is that over time, I came to discover that a linear form of employment does not work for me. As I got exposed to different learnings, and I started reading the likes of Robert Kiyosaki, and I read one of his pivotal books called Cash Flow Quadrant. And as I consciously focused on my personal development journey, I then discovered that I may have a lot in me than just restricting myself to law. So it was a conscious, deliberate effort as I started exposing myself to seminars, to workshops, and then I started reading. At some point, I was so aggressive with my personal development that I was absorbing an average of 2 books a week.
Wow.
And as I did that, it changed me. The more you learn, the more you change, and you get exposed to people like Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn makes it clear that focus on developing yourself as opposed to changing other people or changing your environment, because the environment changes when you change.
That's the principle.
Yes.
Yeah. So that transition was an intentional, deliberate action, and I like the way you stressed it, that it was an intentional, deliberate action. That most of the time we look and say, I wish I can do that, and we don't back that up with action.
Yes.
Part of also what you do is property. And there are restaurants that are under you, like you talked about, also, you know, accommodation, hotels and stuff like that, right? I want to understand, you know, what is that? And you
well, around 2013, as part of that deliberate transition, at that time I think we had 93 doors, which means 93 tenants. I said, look, let me step away from the law, because it was getting to a point where the property business had eclipsed and surpassed the legal profession, and that it was necessary that I devote more attention to it. Even the bankers and other people with whom I dealt wanted a situation where there's a dedicated board and there's a dedicated management team.
I see.
So 2013 we then focus more on Mogobe Incorporated, which is our property holding company. If you like, it is our mother company under which all the other companies are based. So the objective was that to develop a number of enterprises with property undergirding. I think the right word is to undergird, which is to support all these enterprises. The place we are in, for instance, the restaurant, is in a property. And if you go to the law firm, it's inside a property. If you go to the other businesses such as the bed and breakfast, they are in a property. So I realized that property is at the center of most businesses. So why don't we focus on ensuring that we have a strong property portfolio? And this is what we are currently doing, where we have two lines of operation. One is acquisitions, and the other is development. And we are continually acquiring property as well as developing property.
All right. Talking about property business, and there's other side, speaking. There's other side, the radio. There's other side, the media business that you are also involved in sharing content to empower other people. Let's talk on the property currently. What are you working on? And also besides property, speaking, what are you currently working on?
Well, with regard to property, we are working on a number of developments. In Kwayapiri, we have found a large piece of land. I think it's 6,000 square meters, where we are putting 4 large warehouses. At the moment, we're at a point where we have dug the trench and we're in the process of putting up the structure. And we have a dedicated number of people working on that. We also have another warehouse, which is under our property, our under sanitation company, which is Clean Cities and Towns. We are also putting up a wall there with a view to ensuring that the whoever rents from us is secure. So we have those two running at the same time. But in tandem with that, I can let your audience know that we're actively looking for multi-residential property. We're actively looking for commercial property. We're actively looking for industrial property. But we have a strict acquisition criteria. And maybe in a future episode, you will invite me over, then I'll explain to you what is the acquisition criteria. Because with property, you have to be extra careful, because you can make one small mistake if you are careless and it can wipe you out. So we have a strict criteria where we ensure that we buy properties which are at least 20% below market, properties which can be self-sustaining, and that sort of thing. So we are very, very deliberate and very, very careful about that.
All right. Now, talking about this idea, Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom.
Yes, you asked about speaking. Sorry, I nearly forgot. What I realized mid last year is that every time I've been invited to speak, a lot of people who are in the audience come to me after I speak and they say, can you mentor me? Can you influence me? Can you recommend books to me? Can you impact me in one way or the other, one-on-one? And then I realized that it's impossible. And this is something that my mentor also brought to my attention. My mentor is Mr. Manhabi Muni, who's also my neighbor, who owns the I Towers. And he pointed out that, look, he'd rather have people come to Travel Lodge, fill up an open space and have them speak, and have himself speaking to them, as opposed to one-on-one arrangements. That doesn't work. So realizing that, it came to my mind that, look, why don't I set up a YouTube channel?
Yep.
I've always been fascinated on the idea of inspiring and empowering others.
Yep.
This is why 12 years ago we set up Meet the Overcomers, which
Yep.
is one of the longest running radio programs in this country. It's been running, I think this is the 13th year.
And very impactful.
And thank you very much.
Yeah.
But thanks to Mr. Mazani Recton, who is my partner and friend.
Yeah.
He's been very, very consistent. Every single week there's an interview.
Yeah.
So we built on that. So the idea of Mogobe's Nuggets of Wisdom, and by the way, I'm urging your listeners to please subscribe because it's only through subscriptions that we can reach more people.
Yes, true.
And then have even the YouTube people recognize through algorithms
Yes.
what we are doing so that it can be effective.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm doing with speaking. So all along, I also felt that maybe we should monetize this. Maybe we should make money out of this. So I'm trying to move from a speaker who speaks for free to a speaker who speaks for a fee, but also for impact.
True.
So that at least I can cover my disbursements and cover costs. And people, when they pay for something, tend to recognize the value of that something. Yeah. So I'm sure you don't speak for free.
I don't.
So maybe one day I'll get to a level where I'm able to insist on getting paid for speaking.
But you already are.
Yes.
What I wanted to stress from that is the knowledge-based economy. Speaking like you are sharing content, and people actually say, you know what, I'm willing to pay you to come and talk to me. How can young people, the way you are doing it is like, you are doing it like what young people should be doing now. Like if you are sitting, you have a camera, you shoot something, you put it on YouTube. It's not for Botswana only. You are feeding from people outside the country. Recently, I was invited to speak at the Kingdom of Swatini. It's only the videos. They never saw me speak in person.
Yeah, I mean,
so what are your thoughts around that?
I'm so glad that even in the budget speech, Dr. Matseka, when he delivered the budget speech, mentioned this.
Yeah.
When we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, what it really means is that there has to be a greater cross-pollination of ideas, cross-pollination of content. Things have changed. The dynamic has changed. What we are doing now, 10, 15 years ago, required an entire studio, required an expenditure of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pula before people can. Now things have changed, and the fourth industrial revolution has leveled the playing field. So I think youngsters, if some of them are listening, should take full advantage of that. If they have something that they are good at, they should find a way of recording their content, find a way of packaging what it is they have to share with the world, so that they can do it. So what we are doing with the four nuggets of wisdom, as well as what you and I have partnered in with, I've partnered with you to be able to give seminars and to be able to give workshops, is to be able to reach more people. I mean, to go beyond the borders of Botswana. Part of the limiting factor about our country is a limited population of 2.3 million. How do you then go further into SADC? How do you then take advantage of what's happening now with SADC having signed the free trade agreement for SADC, and as well as for Africa as a whole? How do you take full advantage of that as a small country? I mean, look at countries like Dubai, the UAE, United Arab Emirates. I mean, the population challenges are similar to ours, but look at the huge impact they're having internationally. So my argument is that we can do the same, and even maybe get to greater heights than some of these countries have done.
That's very true, and thank you so much for touching it that further. Let's talk about something that I know is very close to your heart: the issue of one developing themselves. Everything else into the properties you have, business, speaking, media, they all are relying on one person, Mogobe. And Mogobe, if is not strong enough with building that personal development, it's close to impossible to go through that. Talk about the importance and the intention that someone has to put behind developing themselves.
I was very fortunate in that I had mentors. One of my mentors is Mr. Said Abu Fazil Jamali, who owns Universal Builders. And then I mentioned Mr. Manhabi Muni. And I also have a great mentor in Mr. Mahang, David and Zimele Mahang. Having these mentors has made me realize that there's no need for one to limit themselves. All of them have their own original professions. One was a trader, one is an engineer, the other is a lawyer. So they went way beyond those limitations, and I saw exactly what Kiyosaki was talking about, where these gentlemen I mentioned moved from linear income, where everything depends on themselves. They empowered others. So I came to realize that it's more important for me to create other managers, so that I'd rather be managing managers than actually managing hundreds of people. So I like to think of myself as a manager of managers who have to report to me, who have to account for what else is happening. But it all boils down to this idea that we have to personally, deliberately, and consciously empower ourselves. What other way is there to empower yourself rather than through learning and reading? And one of the things I mentioned when I was giving a talk at Gabs FM recently is that the richest people in the world are known for one thing: they read. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. He says he spends 6 to 8 hours a day reading newspapers and books. And look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates says that he takes reading vacations so that he can catch up on reading. And I'm sure all these other successful people read. I mean, even Elon Musk says he taught himself how to code. And if you look at people even like our former president, Gitumile Masire, they all talk about the importance of learning and reading, and they talk about how this education has impacted them. And let me not forget to mention that when you talk of Jim Rohn, Jim Rohn says that education will make you successful, but self-education will make you a fortune. So if the fortune is not just in terms of money, the fortune is in terms of being comfortable with yourself, being healthy, interacting with the community, and having an impact, making a difference in what you deliver to other fellow human beings.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I want to take from there your last words. You know, what would you like to say to a listener right now? There are people who have set great goals that they want to grow into, but they don't. Some of them, they don't know where to start. Some of them, they hate challenges that they've gone through. You know, talk about that part of how do you go, you know, to create that an overcomer spirit in you to face whatever that is coming your way.
The thing about challenges, you'll face them regardless of how much effort you're putting. I mean, whether you sit the whole day not doing anything, there'll be significant challenges. Having to do with the fridge being empty, having to do with the wife demanding this. Whether you're hardworking or not, challenges will also happen. So there's a book that I like referring to by a guy called Ryan Holiday. There are many other books which talk about overcoming obstacles and appreciating that obstacles are part of the path. What I would say to the listener is that set yourself those hairy, audacious goals. In fact, they're called BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. In our case, we're setting ourselves a goal of putting up a 21-story building, which seems at the moment impossible because we don't even know where we're going to find the money. But it's a goal that is driving us in addition to the other mini goals that we've set for ourselves. So if you set yourself goals and if you work on personal development, and I can urge the people just to cut down on Netflix, to cut down on television, to cut down on things that are not adding power. In your case, when you were at Cinemedia, it was a classic example of what I'm talking about. You found time, and your book spells this out. I've read both your books, by the way. Spells it out that you consciously carved out the time after hours, during weekends, for you to develop your side hustle. And as we are talking, your side hustle has surpassed and overtaken your job, and you ended up quitting, you know, at the right time to go on your own venture. So that's what I would urge the listener to do. Find your path and develop yourself, and do it consciously, repeatedly, and deliberately.
Wow, that's well put. Say, last question. What keeps you going? What is that big thing, driving force behind everything else you do that says every morning I have to be up and getting things done?
Two things really drive me. My religious faith. If you look at the fourth commandment, which talks about the Sabbath, part of that commandment talks about 6 days that you shall work. So the whole idea is that I'm going to spend 6 days working. What else is there to do? Because it's a commandment of God. You have to work, you have to apply yourself, make a difference. The other thing is the belief that whatever you set your mind to is going to be blessed. I think it's in the book of Deuteronomy, which is very clear that as long as you obey God and you don't engage in reckless behavior or you don't offend the rules of natural rules of natural justice, basic rules which are set out in the big book and in the good book, you will be blessed and you'll succeed. So it drives me, that faith. And then of course I have the good fortune of being married to a very, very powerful and useful partner in my wife. She also helps me and she's a good companion. So and also the overall desire which I mentioned earlier, to make an impact, to make a difference in people's lives, and to leave a significant legacy. I believe that every human being has been set for a purpose. And you mentioned this in your book, and all the other books on personal development mentioned this. So the challenge for us is to find that purpose and to run with it as much as you can and execute on it.
Thank you so much, sir.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
I liked when he said you are given 6 days to work, then you must utilize working on them. It's Mr. Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.